So we're back with Demon Slayer this week, and once again, the episode review is coming out a little later than I would like. I don't like that it comes out really late into the day when people are kind of like starting to get back home and they're probably not going to want to watch a video like this. But whatever, I'm mainly putting these videos out for myself anyways, so it doesn't really matter if people watch them. But if you do, I do appreciate it. But something that I've now noticed with this episode is that Demon Slayer tends to use a format that I feel like a lot of shows have used, but I'm particularly noticing it with this show. And basically what they do for each new season, they have like one big episode to start off. They've done this for 2 seasons now with the Entertainment District arc and now the Swordsmith Village arc, where they have the first episode being like 45 to 47 minutes ish, like on average long, establishing a bunch of plot details and setting up the status quo. The next episode and maybe like a couple episodes after that are basically establishing more of the status quo and continuing it out even further. And then very soon after, we have like probably like the third or fourth episode where the status quo is basically broken and the demons then show up and they start attacking our main characters. And that's exactly what ends up happening in this episode, or pretty much this season, exactly as I described it. The first episode of the season basically establishes a lot of plot details and establishes the status quo. Episode 2 established more of the status quo and continue on further, bringing in new elements to, bring the characters where they're supposed to be in that moment. This episode this week establishes more of that and progresses the characters even further forward, but ultimately ends up breaking the status quo as soon as the upper ranking demons end up showing up. So I think upper ranking demons 4 and 5, they end up showing up in the Swordsmith Village. And of course that's a very bad thing, because not only are they upper moons, but they know the location of the Swordsmith Village. So if they make it out of this alive, they're gonna have pretty much annihilated all the swordsmith, which is a very bad thing, because those are the only people in the world who actually create the swords for, the Demon Slayer Corps. And, the swords are a very integral, important thing when you are a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. So if you don't have anybody who can actually create the swords, what are you really going to be able to do when yours ends up getting broken, or you end up losing it, or mainly getting broken? But before that ends up happening, we end up getting some levity before that. So we see Tanjiro, and Kotetsu, talking about the sword, right? The 300-year-old sword that was inside of the training doll that Tanjiro had previously in the last episode been training with. And they open up the sword from its sheath and it's super rusty, which makes sense because it's the sword from like 300 years ago and no one has exactly been polishing it. It's probably been exposed to the elements for a really long time, so it needs to be polished. And Haganezuka ends up coming back in the episode. I was kind of laughing at him the whole entire time, mainly because he's more like one of the comedic characters in the show to begin with, but he's like also super jacked, and that was like what I was laughing at the most, because when we last saw him, he wasn't like nearly as jacked as he was before, but he was essentially just in the mountains training by himself, so that way he can create like a stronger sword, so that way Tanjiro can not always have to request for a brand new sword, because ultimately he is his swordsmith and he wants the Demon Slayer that he's working for to not have to constantly worry about his sword getting damaged, as well, considering the fact that he gets really upset whenever Tanjiro ends up chipping the sword or breaking the sword in any way. So he gives Tanjiro, his normal Nichiren sword, and he grabs the sword from 300 years ago, and then pretty much for the foreseeable future, he ends up leaving with the sword to go polish it. We get a little bit more moments of, comedicness, I would say. We see Genya in the episode, and we see he's referring to his brother, and he's very angry about something, and we don't really know what it is, but ultimately it has probably something to do with his brother, and he's doing something probably against his brother's wishes, and something that probably maybe other members of the Demon Slayer Corps don't really agree with, but he has to do it anyways. So we're probably going to see more revolving around his character in the foreseeable future in this arc, which I would really hope so, because I think I said this in the last episode as well. He's sort of just a character that we haven't really seen a whole lot of, and because of that, I would really like to establish more uh, elements to his character. Like, why does he have the huge scar on his face? What type of relationship does he have with his brother, who's one of the Hashira, right? The brother that he has, who's a member of the Hashira, is kind of like notably kind of insane. I'm pretty sure he was like the one who was trying to get Nezuko to like bite him, so that way they can like justify getting rid of Nezuko. And there's just more to his character that's going to be explored, hopefully, and I hope that that's the case. Moody Chiro is also another character that I want to see more explored, because we see him in the episode before shit starts going down, and Tanjiro refers to, or says something, and Tokito ends up like really pointing that out, and it was essentially like, if you do kindness to one person, it'll somehow come around to you in the end. And this one line really stuck out to him, and we don't really know why. Maybe he was told that by someone else. Maybe he had a mentor before in the past, and someone, or just someone really close to him in his life, and they ended up getting taken out by a demon. And maybe, as a result of that happening, that's the reason why he's as cold and calculated as he is. Who knows? There's a multitude of different reasons as to why that can actually be. Ultimately, however, the status quo is broken. Gyoko and Hantengu end up showing up. Like I said, I think they're the Upper Moon 4 and 5, and I don't know, I kind of, because Kokushibo is 1, Domo is 2, and Akaza is 3, so they have to be like 4 and 5. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. They end up showing up to the Swordsmith village, and they break the status quo. Hantengu ends up showing up, and he goes after Muichiro, Tanjiro, and Nezuko, as they're like having their interactions with one another. And then Gyoko does whatever the hell that he does, and we see him in a pot and eat a guy, so that was kind of disturbing. Anyways, Hantengu, though, we see a sort of like a glimpse as to what his demon blood art is, and ultimately it's sort of the same thing that we're expecting, or we didn't really expect from Gyutaro. And the fact is that we can't slice this guy's head off like normal demons, because if you do, he just splits up into 2 different bodies. So they split off the head once, he gets split up into two different bodies. And Tanjiro actually pointed out really, really quickly, I was actually pretty surprised by that. He gets stronger, but naturally, but he also gets younger, which I thought was an interesting thing to point out. So he gets split into 2, gets younger and stronger, and the 2 demons that are now apparent and are fighting both Murichiro and Tanjiro, and Nezuko as well. They have starkly different personalities than when they were together as Hantengu. They get split up into another set of 2, so now there's 4 of them. One of them can fly, one of them picks up Tanjiro, and now Tanjiro's going to have to fight this flying one all by himself. And I'm sure they all seem to have different personalities and different names, and I think some of them are also linked to the specific emotions from Hantengu, because one of them has like the kanji for joy on their tongue, and we see that like before the episode ends, which is interesting. Genya ends up showing up in during the fighting when it starts, and he has like this gun. I thought it was very strange. I mean, we saw it in the opening, so I knew to expect it, but he's got like a shorter sword than a usual demon slayer, but then he also has a gun, and it's also like a Nichirin sword, which is very interesting. I'm not sure if that has something to do in the correlate of what he was insinuating when we saw him before the attack of the Upper Moons on the Swordsmith village. So I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to see what's up with that. I'm not really sure what it is, but it should be kind of cool. Regardless, though, he ends up getting stabbed and almost probably incapacitated, but Nezuko's probably going to go in and save him. she does have like this weird healing power, so she's probably gonna heal him as well, that we saw from the last season. And Muichiro ends up saving Kotetsu, right? And the only reason why he even decided to do that to begin with was because he remembered what Tanjiro said. So obviously what Tanjiro said, and that's why I pointed it out, was it's stuck in his head, right? Because normally Muichiro, he's all about the mission, right? He's very head forward and headstrong, and he has, you know, he has a role to play, and he plays out that role to a T. But this one thing that Tanjiro said reminded him of something before in his past, and he did something completely out of character, which I think we're gonna, you know, see in the near future why it was very odd for him to do that. So the episode pretty much ends with the status quo getting broken, like I said, and all of our key players are sort of like in the moment now, and they're fighting one of the upper moons, except Yutaro, he's not there, and Mitsuri also isn't there, so she's probably going to end up showing up next episode, most likely. She's probably going to end up showing there, unless they wanted to focus more on developing Muichiro's character in the next episode, and then after that we're going to then see Mitsuri, which I think would make sense. But if they don't want to do that, they can do whatever they want, because ultimately I'm not the showrunner, you know, I'm not the one making the executive decisions. Anyways, obviously it was kind of like a slower paced episode to begin with, but ultimately ended up picking up the pace once the upper moon showed up. But it was still really cool, and it was, you know, animated really well. The comedic moments made me chuckle. Like I said, animated well. The characters are always really interesting to watch, and I just liked seeing more of Tanjiro in this episode, and how he just has this not woeful optimistic side of him, but he's like really optimistic, and he's not really ignorant either. But I do find it funny how in the episode he's like trying to be friendly with Genya, and Genya obviously doesn't really want to be friends with him, but he's still trying to anyways, which is kind of funny. And you know, I think it's just ultimately because he wants to grow closer to people, because the most important people in his lives, you know, were killed by demons. So he wants to get attached more to people and understand who they are and why they do what they do, and just grow a bond, because the bonds that he had before with his family had been severed, you know, by Muzan Kibutsuchi. So I don't know, just Tanjiro is just such a very interesting like main character. He's not like other main shonen protagonists, but I like that. You know, I like how he's like, he still has a lot of very similar traits, obviously, but he still like doesn't have a lot of the, you know, tropes and stereotypes of those characters. So anyways, that's besides the point. I don't really have much else to say about the episode. I really liked it. It was slower paced at the beginning, even though there were more comedic moments in those parts, but I thought they were funny enough. You know, they did get some chuckles out of me, and there are some kind of cute moments as well, like when Nezuko, she gets her hair braided like Mitsuri. I thought that was cute. And then the episode really picks up with the action towards the end, and it looks great. I'm really excited to see what the fighting is gonna be like, and what sort of powers these upper moons have that are different from Yutaro, from what we've seen, obviously. Should be cool, right? Should be interesting. I want to see more of these characters' backstories, like the characters that we haven't really seen much, you know. I want to see more from Muichiro. I want to see more from Genya. I want to see more from Mitsuri. I want to know more about them, you know, before they're probably going to end up dying. So anyways, that's it. That's pretty much the episode and my thoughts and opinions about it. Let me know what yours are in the comments. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more, please be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic day. I'm out. Peace.